Can you believe what you have been seeing on CNN today, ladies and gentlemen? Can you believe it? Supposedly, a CNN reporter found Osama bin Laden, took a television camera crew with him, went into Osama bin Laden's hideout, interviewed him and his top leadership, his top lieutenants and colonels and generals in their hideout. This is a CNN reporter with a camera crew. And he came out and told everybody, within 3 weeks, Osama bin Laden is going to attack the United States and Israel. Now, don't you think that's kind of strange, folks? You see, because the largest intelligence apparatus in the world, with the biggest budget in the history of the world, has been looking for Osama bin Laden for years and years and years, and can't find him. A reporter from CNN and his little camera crew got in to Osama bin Laden's secret hideout and conducted an interview. If you don't believe me, tune into CNN. They're probably running it right now as I'm speaking.
We begin with the story of a shadowy multimillionaire who has declared a holy war against the United States. To some in the Islamic world, he is a hero. To the United States government, though, he is a terrorist, a real threat to the lives of U.S. troops. He is Osama bin Laden, and Impact's Peter Arnett takes us into his hideaway and into his mind with this first ever television interview.
Amidst these remote mountains of Afghanistan are the various hiding places of one of the world's most wanted men, Osama bin Laden.
We declared a jihad, a holy war, against the United States government because it is unjust, criminal, and tyrannical.
The U.S. State Department calls him one of the most significant financial sponsors of Islamic extremism in the world.
He is a major terrorist financier, and with a large fortune of his own, he has bankrolled terrorist groups and individuals all over the world.
The State Department links the 41-year-old bin Laden to Ramzi Youssef, alleged mastermind of the World Trade Center bombing, New York. An attempted bombing of U.S. troops in 1992, Yemen. Terrorist training camps in Sudan and Afghanistan. Islamic terrorist groups in Egypt and Algeria.
Younger generation, Islamic, especially those Islamic fundamentalists, they are looking for a hero. And Mr. bin Laden fit the bill.
In Western intelligence circles, bin Laden is best known for this document, a call for jihad or holy war against the thousands of U.S. soldiers now stationed in Saudi Arabia. That call to jihad came after 2 bombings of U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia. The first in Riyadh in 1995, 7 dead. The second in Dhahran in 1996, 19 dead, hundreds injured. To support his holy war, sources estimate bin Laden has up to $500 million. To execute the jihad, bin Laden has thousands of committed followers inside Saudi Arabia.
They are either direct followers taking direct command and order from bin Laden, or they are small cells and groups who believe bin Laden is a godfather. His message is almost like a religious order.
Most of those followers fought alongside bin Laden in an earlier jihad, the 1980s war in Afghanistan against the Soviet Union. Afghanistan drew thousands of volunteers like these from around the Islamic world. They learned how to handle weapons and explosives. They became known as the Afghan Arabs. Osama bin Laden left his comfortable life in Saudi Arabia to become a leader of the Afghan Arabs. Informed estimates put their numbers between 12,000 and 20,000 men. Bin Laden's victories against the Soviets were well publicized in Saudi Arabia.
Because of that, a lot of people wanted to participate in jihad, and they thought that Osama is an important figure. But he was not only willing to put his money, but he actually gone there himself and fought himself and get hurt.
After the Afghan war, bin Laden became disillusioned with the Saudi regime, deeming it insufficiently Islamic. He moved to Sudan. 5 years later, under U.S. and Saudi pressure, bin Laden was expelled from Sudan. A year ago, bin Laden took refuge here in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is perhaps the only country in the world that will accept him. Our quest to meet bin Laden begins in Peshawar, Pakistan, and then across the Khyber Pass to Jalalabad, Afghanistan, where we wait for several days. Finally, bin Laden's media advisor arrives. We are allowed to take our lights and sound equipment, but not our camera. There have been assassination attempts against bin Laden, and his security force worries our camera might contain a tracking device that would give away his location. The interview will be conducted with their camera. As best as we can reconstruct it, this is the route that we took to meet bin Laden. We are put in a minivan with curtained windows and drive west. As night falls, we move to a four-wheel drive vehicle that makes its way up a rough mountain path past checkpoints manned by heavily armed men. We are searched and electronically scanned to ensure that we're not carrying a tracking device. About 5,000 feet up is a small hut. We are allowed about an hour and a half with bin Laden. We have submitted questions in advance. He agrees to answer most of them, but does not allow follow-up questions.
Mr. bin Laden, you have declared a jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
The US government has committed acts that are extremely unjust, hideous, and criminal through its support of the Israeli occupation of Palestine. And we believe the US is directly responsible for those killed in Palestine, Lebanon, and Iraq. Due to its subordination to the Jews, the arrogance of the United States regime has reached the point that they occupied Arabia, the holiest place of the Muslims, who are more than 1 billion people in the world today. For this and other acts of aggression and injustice, we have declared jihad against the US.
Is the jihad directed against the US government or United States troops in Arabia? What about U.S. civilians in Arabia or the people of the United States?
We have focused our declaration of jihad on striking at the US soldiers inside Arabia, the country of the two holy places, Mecca and Medina. In our religion, it is not permissible for any non-Muslim to stay in Arabia. Therefore, even though American civilians are not targeted in our plan, they must leave. We do not guarantee their safety.
When this guy delivers his statements attacking the U.S. presence or his call for jihad, he is justifying these actions in very explicit Quranic, Islamic terms with a law. It's like a careful legal brief.
The U.S. government charges bin Laden with supporting terrorist activities throughout the Middle East.
The U.S. today has set a double standard, calling whoever goes against its injustice a terrorist. It wants to occupy our countries, steal our resources, impose agents on us to rule us, and then wants us to agree to all this. If we refuse to do so, it says we are terrorists. When Palestinian children throw stones against the Israeli occupation, the U.S. says they are terrorists. Whereas when Israel bombed the United Nations building in Lebanon, while it was full of children and women, the U.S. stopped any plan to condemn Israel.
The U.S. government also points to bin Laden's circumstantial ties to terrorism within the United States.
Mr. bin Laden, if you had an opportunity to give a message to President Clinton, what would that message be?
Mentioning the name of Clinton provokes disgust and revulsion. The president has a heart that knows no words. A heart that kills hundreds of children definitely knows no words. Our people in Arabia will send him messages without words, because he does not understand words. If there is a message that I may send through you, I address the mothers of the American troops. To these mothers I say, if they are concerned for their sons, then let them object to the U.S. government's policy.
But in Afghanistan, bin Laden is beyond the reach of U.S. law enforcement. The country is dominated by the Taliban, a movement of religious students turned warriors who have imposed their harsh interpretation of Islam. The Taliban have recently declared that bin Laden is their guest, providing he does not attack other nations. But bin Laden may have other ideas.
What are your future plans?
You'll see them and hear about them in the media, God willing.
And if you believe it, you are one of the stupidest jerks that ever lived on the face of this earth. And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it. When in hell are all you people going to wake up?
An examination of the building's steel beams and columns could have shown whether explosives had been used to slice them, but virtually all of the steel was removed before it could be properly investigated, then put on ships to Asia to be melted down.
It's important for us to not reveal how we collect information. That's what the enemy wants.
And you have no evidence that the government's behind 9/11, and I frankly think it's an awful thing to allege, considering it's not true and you haven't proved that it is. It's totally implausible. Like, we would report that if that were true.
Because these guys own our government. They print our money, and they own not only the government, but they own you. You are their property. So, in other words, these guys print the money, they run the country, and they own you, and they own everything around it. And so they make the laws, and that's why they can decide who can kill who, and who can get away with who, and who can get away with whatever, because they make the laws and they decide, all right?
On that day, what did the president say to you?
The president, in a very intimidating way, left us, me and my staff, with the clear indication that he wanted us to come back with the word that there was an Iraqi hand behind 9/11, because they had been planning to do something about Iraq from before the time they came into office.
Did he ask about any other nations other than Iraq?
No, not at all. It was Iraq, Saddam, find out, get back to me.
And were his questions more about Iraq than about al-Qaeda?
Absolutely, absolutely. He didn't ask me about al-Qaeda. And we said, but Iraq had nothing to do with this. And that didn't seem to make much difference.
And we'll continue to work together to achieve peace. That's what we want. Freedom and peace.
Look at the Council on Foreign Relations. Many members, in fact, the majority, never serve on the executive committees. They never go through any initiation of any kind. They are, in fact, the power base and are used to gain a consensus of opinion. The majority are not really members, but are made to feel as if they are. In reality, they are being used and are unwilling or unable to understand. They may have been or may be members of the Christian or Jewish religion, but that is only to further their own ends. They are, and always have been, Luciferian and internationalist. They give allegiance to no particular nation, although they have used, on occasion, nationalism to further their causes. Their only concern is to gain greater economic and political power. The ultimate objective of the leaders of both groups is identical. They are determined to win for themselves undisputed control of the wealth, natural resources, and manpower of the entire planet. They intend to turn the world into their conception of a Luciferian totalitarian socialist state. In the process, they will eliminate all Christians, Jews, and atheists. You have just learned one, but only one, of the great mystery.
The people who are running this country from behind the scenes do not care a thing about Americans or bloodshed anywhere. I think we're going to awaken one day to find out that we've all been too relaxed and entertained and watching television and being entertained with all the cares of life, never realizing what is going on in this country.
In the secret, ladies and gentlemen, they are at least, very bare minimum, 50 to 100 years ahead, beyond what you can even imagine.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda.
It is May 2nd, 2011. Yesterday, May Day, May 1st, President Obama addressed the nation late Sunday evening to say that just hours before, Osama bin Laden had been killed in the middle of a major populated city in a palace compound. My friends, this is a complete and total hoax, and we predicted with total precision, with inside sources, going back more than 8 years ago, exactly what would happen. It's on record that Steve Pachinik, who worked as the top deputy to Henry Kissinger, and who also is a high-level Council on Foreign Relations member, was interviewed back in April of 2002 and said that bin Laden was dead and that was on ice, and that in the future he would be used at a politically expedient time to bolster the government in the eyes of the people. Mr. Pachinik, extremely high-powered. Here's the quote. "I worked with Osama bin Laden," Pachinik told Jones, adding that he later turned terrorist hunter during subsequent administrations. And then he went on from that point, this is just a few months after 9/11, early 2002, to break this down. Now, I was the first to ever have an insider come out and say this. Then Madeleine Albright in 2003, on December 17th, went on Fox News program and said that he was dead and on ice and that the Bush administration was thinking about rolling him out during the 2004 election if they needed it. But then because of that coverage, the inside baseball was they didn't. Now, even before she went public, a year and a half after I first broke this news, I had a White House source here in Austin, Texas. You know, a lot of folks live here in Austin, but were also in the Bush administration because they came from Texas. Bush had just been governor here. And I was told by an extremely high-level White House source this information. Separately, I then confirmed through another White House source here in Austin through a separate party. Ladies and gentlemen, this was completely staged. All right, there's the whole CIA background of Osama bin Laden. There's the fact that it comes out that Anwar al-Awlaki, his number 2, running all these terror attacks, is hanging out secretly at the Pentagon. There's the government lying about WMDs and our destroyers being attacked to get us into Vietnam. You know this history of major hoaxes being run. But notice when all this came out, then I'll go through some anomalies, just the tip of the iceberg. This all came out right at the time that Obama's approval rating was dropping like a rock, an all-time low this far into a president's administration, as the dollar's dropping, as support for Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and the drone attacks in Pakistan was imploding, right as the Pakistanis were threatening to kick the U.S. out of Pakistan and to kick their drones out. Right as this happens, there's this big propaganda victory, and what do? They take the body and throw it in the ocean, they say. Do you really believe that? No one is buying that. I've been listening to talk radio last night and this morning, even conservative stations that want to buy into this propaganda. No one is buying that. They've thrown his body in, but don't worry, they have a DNA test and they have a face scan so they know it's him. This is the same government where the CIA agents last year admitted in the Washington Post that they created fake bin Laden videos. This is the same government that's constantly caught lying. But conveniently, his body is now out in the ocean somewhere, buried at sea. But it gets worse. Last night, as soon as this was announced, it was all over U.S. TV, British TV, European papers, fake photos. And as soon as I saw it, I sent text messages to Paul Watson and others and said, look into this. This is the same fake bin Laden dead photo that's photoshopped of him that we saw years ago. And so digging into this, we've learned they claim that they've killed him 9 separate times. But obviously, this is the big presidential announcement. They claim that they've killed other al-Qaeda operatives over and over again. They're training you to accept this type of garbage. So we've got that information. That they've killed him 9 times. And finally, now we're being told, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who's been tortured for many, many years and who confessed to bombing buildings that were built after he was incarcerated, he might as well confess to shooting Kennedy or killing Lincoln or crucifying Christ 2011 years ago. I mean, this is getting more and more insane. All the usual suspects, the Adam Gadon, the grandson of the former head of the ADL, the Zawahiri, all of them are running around saying, we're going to get you. And Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is saying from Guantanamo that if they kill bin Laden, nukes will go off. And then meanwhile, you've got our media reporting there could be 160 nukes. I mean, does anybody believe this? This is going to be used to launch more wars, to say, see, we're winning, and to have a bigger domestic crackdown to protect us from the terrorists hiding under every table. Make no mistake, we got sent over 2 years ago, the Homeland Security MIAC reports, 90+% of the Homeland Security activity is against gun owners, conservatives, libertarians, in the fetters, people that understand the real enemy of this country are the offshore banks that have come in and taken over this nation. So right as our country's being imploded, right as the world government's being announced, right as we go into the Depression, here's this PR move about, boy, we're walking a little taller today, got a spring in my step. It's all a wag the dog Hollywood production. My friends, we'll continue to cover all the other developments. There's so much more at Infowars.com, on the live radio show, and the video feed at PrisonPlanet.tv. So continue to watch Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. We've got about 1 million people roughly hitting the site an hour right now. This is the biggest news story we've ever been involved in, obviously, as the whole world is looking for answers to what's happened. But that's just some of the points, and more anomalies are coming out. And they announced this on a Sunday night, so they dominate the news cycle this week. But already, people are not buying into it across the board. It is a fairy tale. If you believe this, then I got a bridge I'm wanting to sell you. And I've got some oceanfront property in Arizona. Again, continue to be skeptical, continue to research, and understand that we have all the inside sources. And then Baer, the former CIA commander, all of them on record saying he was dead a long time ago. They've known this. He was a convenient boogeyman. Remember Bush saying, I don't care where he is. I'm not worried about him. And now they're basically just announcing this to signify not the end of the war on terror, but to basically bring in false flag attacks or the threat of attacks as a pretext to relaunch and expand the police state that's been set up for the American people.